Hello friends, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. Hope you're all doing awesome today. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get into it. I'm a man. Here I am working my average morning shift at a hotel. Our checkout time is 11 a.m., and if you want to stay an extra night, it should be paid by then. It's slow season though, so we're giving people a little more grace than we normally would. Housekeeping lets me know room X has not checked out. They're not answering the phone. 11:30 rolls around and in walks room X to my lobby. He's a young African American man and he just shouts the room number at me 3 times. X, X, X. And I wait for him to finish this chant before I can ask, checking out or extending. He says extending, so I let him know very politely. It's not a big deal this time, but just so you know going forward, the room needs to be paid before 11, checkout time. All he had to do was say okay, but of course not. I just woke up. Lamest excuse ever. But I just look at him and tell him, like I said, sir, it's not a big deal today, but going forward, you will need to pay before 11 if you'd like to stay. Now for tonight, it's such and such dollars. He gets really huffy, shoves some money in my hand. I continue extending him like normal, process the payment. Now we use a really old system for making the keys. We have this programmer block and you put the key in, then type the room number and the number of days. So every time you extend, you need to make new keys. Otherwise, you'll be locked out of your room at 11. The key system is not synced to our reservation system. So I ask him for his keys to remake them. Somehow, this must have been a big mistake, because now he's mad and I can't quite work out why, but I'm just trying to get him out of my lobby ASAP. He throws the keys on the counter, tells me how difficult I'm making everything, I'm so rude, etc, etc. He's really upset. And of course, only one of his keys is in the sleeve he handed to me. I know there's 2 people in the room. Sir, would you like me to make you a second key or did you just want one? I already have keys. You have so much attitude, what's your problem? I try to explain why I asked, try to ask again. He keeps yelling over me. We're getting nowhere at all, and I can't even understand half of what he's saying anymore. He's yelling so fast and loud. I still don't even actually get why he's mad. I ask him to calm down. I ask why he's mad. He just keeps yelling. At this point, the owner of the property was coming up to see what the problem was. He asked me, and I told the owner honestly, I have no idea why he's so upset. The upset guest doubles down, addressing the owner now. She can't talk to me like that. I am a man. The owner just sort of shakes his head at the guy and tried to dip out, but the guy won't let him off the hook. I am a man. She cannot talk to me, a man, like that. I could take my money and go to any of the other hotels on the street right now. The owner takes this in, looks at me, tells me to refund him. Guest can do exactly what he said. Go to another hotel. The owner walks off. I give the guy his refund. Now he's backpedaling, saying he never actually said he was going to leave, he didn't mean it, etc. He refuses to take my and the owner's word that he has to leave. Demands to talk to a manager. Lucky him, my manager was sitting in the back, listening to the whole thing. He tried to tell her all about how mean I am, and now he doesn't deserve that and how he wants to stay. My manager told him that she was in the back, knows I wasn't rude, and that yes, he does have to leave, since the first person who said so was the owner, and it was the guest's idea to begin with. We're just holding him to it. Our favorite way to kick someone out, agreeing when they threaten they'll leave. He decided to go hunt the owner down outside, hoping for a different answer. Of course, he didn't get one. He yelled in my face about being a man, and the owner doesn't make us take crap like that. The owner is the nicest guy in the world, but don't treat his staff bad. So the guest comes back, and now he's saying I owe him money still, the change from the first transaction, before the refund. Now all of this was such a mess, and blew up so oddly and so fast, I couldn't remember if I'd given the change or not, but I wasn't going to take his word for it. Had my manager check the camera, and I did in fact give him his money. And the moment we told him that, he found it in his pocket. Goes back to his room. 10 minutes later, he comes back up with his girlfriend, a small white woman. I'm also a small white woman. She tells us there must be either confusion here, and if there's not, we must all be racists for kicking them out because he's black. Because he would never be rude, the girlfriend tells us. That's completely unlike him, so we must be lying. And besides, she says, they have too much stuff to just leave right away. My manager turns on the kill 'em with kindness charm. Of course, you should feel free to take your time packing, we understand. You can have plenty of extra time, but your boyfriend would really rather be elsewhere and we agreed that that's best. The girlfriend told us we just didn't respect, quote, a real man like she has. They then packed in 10 minutes and left. Housekeeping told us the room was trashed, and they smoked in there, non-smoking property. But the owner and I have a new inside joke. Now when he sees me, he goes, "I'm a man, you're a woman." And we laugh, thinking how stupid that whole situation was. We still don't know how exactly I offended him, and we never will. The time I pepper sprayed a woman. This happened a few months ago, but I've been reluctant to post about it, until I was sure that everything was going to be okay, at least for me. I'm a front desk worker at a hotel. We start with a man who has decided to leave his wife. He's already warned us that she might call or stop by, and that he's not here if she asks. 2 a.m. rolls around and I get a phone call. "I need you to connect me to insert husband's name." "I'm sorry, we don't have anyone staying here by that name." "Bullcrap, I'm in the parking lot and see his car. I'm coming in." Hangs up. Oh boy, here we go. The lady comes in. "Tell me what room he's in." "Sorry, but I'm not going to do that. You need to leave the property now." "If you don't tell me, I'll knock on every single door until I find him." "I'd really appreciate it if you didn't do that. If you don't leave right now, I'm going to call the police." You stupid bitch. She reaches over the desk to try to hit me. I pull out pepper spray and spray her in the face. The lady is rubbing her eyes and starts crying. "Oh my God, I'm calling the police." "Go ahead, I'm calling them too. You tried to assault me." "Yeah, but you did assault me. You sprayed me in the eyes." She sits down on the floor and continues crying while rubbing her eyes. I ignore her and call the police. "Yeah, I need someone to get down here. I just pepper sprayed a lady for trying to assault me." The dispatcher sends police. So I call my manager up because obviously this is something he needs to be aware of. I tell him what happened and he says, "You did what?" I tell him again and he says he'll be right there. I give the woman some water and a face cloth so she can rinse her eyes. I'm not a complete monster. Manager shows up first. He lives less than 2 miles away and asks me what happened. I explain it to him a third time and he looks at the woman, still sitting on the floor crying, and back at me. Police walk in moments later and ask what happened, so I tell them my version and she tells them hers, which was that she politely asked for her husband's room number, and I pepper sprayed her for no reason. My manager runs to the back with a police officer and pulls up our cameras, which include audio. Police see that my side is what really happened, and ask if I want to press charges. I say no since she didn't actually hit me, but that I do want her off the property immediately. She starts yelling that she wants to press charges because I pepper sprayed her. One of the officers tells her that it's perfectly legal in our state to pepper spray someone in self-defense, and she quickly shuts up about it. One of the officers escorts her outside and she doesn't come back. The other officer talks to my manager for a few more minutes, then comes back and tells me that he doesn't think she'll come back, but if she does, to call them again. My manager shakes his head and says this is the first time he's ever had an employee pepper spray a guest. I remind him that she wasn't a guest, and he starts laughing despite how irritated he had previously been, and tells me that we still need to file an incident report so we have a paper trail in case anything did happen. We haven't heard anything from her since, so I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that she won't be attempting to press charges for it. Am I the a-hole for calling the police on my ex for abandoning his child at mine while his girlfriend was giving birth? I, 32 female, had been married to my ex Dan, 35, for 6 years before we divorced at the end of 2020, due to him cheating with Kate. Kate and Dan have a son who is 3, which was conceived and born during the pandemic while I was under high risk, and their entire affair has cost me some of my physical health, not just mental. After the divorce, Dan moved out from my house and we haven't spoken since. Last week, Dan suddenly dropped his son at my house without giving me any warning or explanation. He only mumbled that Kate was giving birth to their second child and needs him in the delivery room due to complications. He left before I could protest, and I tried texting and calling him multiple times and received no reply. I do not know why he thought it was a good idea, as I had plans and they definitely don't involve someone else's child. I ended up calling the police and told them what happened, explained it is not my child and I haven't agreed to look after him and his dad is not responding. They took the child and I haven't heard anything until the very early hours of the same day, when my ex called me calling me an a-hole, as the cops found them in the hospital and basically forced him out of the delivery room so he can look after his child. So he missed the birth of his second, and Kate had some complications so she is in intensive care. He also started shouting, saying that his and Kate's parents are living at the opposite ends of the country and have medical conditions which mean they can't look after his son. I have told him that he should have used his brain cells and thought about it in advance, instead of dumping the product of his affair at my house, knowing that me and him are not civil, but was called an even bigger a-hole. I have mentioned this to some of my family and friends, and while some people are on my side, others agree with my ex, saying I should have looked after the kid and I'm an a-hole for calling the cops. Honestly, this one's very simple. Your ex that you haven't spoken to since the divorce drops off his affair baby at your house that you have nothing to do with. So no, not the a-hole. He deserved to get the cops called on him. The sweet old lady neighbor turned out to be very creepy. To keep it brief, when I was 17, my family and I lived in a rural town in Australia. We moved into a relatively isolated neighborhood, but about 50 to 100 meters next door lived a single old lady. When moving in, she seemed nice enough and introduced herself, etc. Always seemed a tad nosy and asking a lot of questions, but I put it down as what old lonely people do. She seemed sweet, or so I thought. One day on school holidays, I was home alone and making a sandwich in the kitchen. I look out the window over to her property, and through her bedroom window thought I saw a figure in the distance, but it was hard to tell. For some creepy reason, I got my binoculars. I was bored, okay? Looked over, focused them, and my heart sank into my chest, mouth dried and legs shook with shock, as I realized she was staring directly at me. After a few seconds, she made a massive grin on her face. I shut the blinds, told my parents, but they played it off, saying I must have not looked properly. But that's not the creepy part. The night before we were set to move, my father was in the Air Force. I finished playing around on my PC before going to bed. I awoke to rustling sounds outside. I got freaked out when I realized it wasn't merely creaking sounds in the house. With frozen courage, I peeked out the blinds ever so slightly. And bam! I make eye contact with the old lady directly out my window. My body froze and she started quietly laughing, not moving her gaze at all. I shut the blinds, panicked, and shouted for my parents. The three of us searched outside, but nothing. My dad confronted her and she acted like the phony sweet old lady with dementia again. Thank God we moved the next day. As we packed, something in the back of my mind told me she was watching me from afar. Still sends shivers down my spine. I still have paranoia, trouble sleeping at night, and bad dreams. I try to justify it as mental illness or dementia, but it still scares me even though I'm 22. Alright guys, and that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So take care and I'll see you next time.